A musician has vanished out in Los Angeles, and no one has heard from her in weeks. Cecilia Foss, a friend of the missing woman, comes on to discuss what she knows. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. I want to bring your attention to a story that you might not have heard of, but there is a missing Los Angeles musician. Her name is Camilla Laert Segura, and she is 48 years old, originally from Sweden, and she hasn't been heard from since June 29th, but her 2010 silver Ford Fusion was actually seen in the middle of the night out in Beverly Hills on June 30th, although it's not clear if she was the one driving it. I should tell you that her cat of 19 years is also missing as well. Now, Camilla is a model and musician who actually co-wrote the popular Katy Perry hit Walking on Air. What we do know is that she was recently evicted. Apparently, she had trouble making rent payments. I believe the landlord has been contacted by media outlets but hasn't issued a response back. And her friends have said that it is completely out of character for her to disappear. And we actually have a special guest with us right now. One of Camilla's friends has been kind enough to join us and talk to us a little bit more about this. Cecilia Foss joins us now. Cecilia, thank you so much for taking the time and coming here on Sidebar. We really appreciate it because we know that this is a difficult time.
Thank you for having me.
Let's start with what I just said. This is very uncharacteristic of her to just disappear, right?
Yeah, I have known Camilla for a crazy amount of time, and I have never, ever, not ever seen her disappear before. And I've spoken to other friends, family. Everybody says the same thing. This has never happened before.
Okay. When was the last time that you spoke with her?
I spoke to her a couple of months ago. She sent me a text saying she was working on a script. However, I was not in town when she messaged me. So I said, I'll get back to you when I get into town. And then she didn't reply because she was busy working. And then she sent me on a message saying, I'll get back to you as soon as I can. I'm working on my film right now. And then I left town, and then I got a message from a friend saying, have you spoken to Camilla? Because we can't get a hold of her. To which I said, yeah, I spoke to her a little while ago and she was fine. She was working on a script and she was just really busy. Then somebody said, well, nobody's heard from her in weeks, which I immediately called another friend who also said the same thing. And then we all started calling each other, realizing she was missing.
And when you spoke to her, when you had this communication with her, nothing out of the ordinary, right? Nothing different about her or anything like that?
No, she was just busy working, trying to, like you said, she had some issues with the landlord because of COVID. Artists in general, I think, was struggling during COVID, and a lot of us had a hard time getting work because we were stuck in our houses. So she was not getting any work during COVID, and I, as an artist too, like she didn't have an outlet, and I think it just really was difficult for her to find money for rent. So I think she came to an agreement, as far as I know, she came to an agreement with her landlord that she was going to get more time and she was going to get the money together for rent. However, I guess he changed his mind and asked her to evacuate the premises.
Do you know the landlord? Have you heard anything about the landlord, anything like that?
I don't know the landlord at all. I spoke to our friend Liz yesterday, who I think has spoken to him, but I don't know anything about him.
By the way, before I ask you more about this, how did you meet Camilla in the first place?
Camilla and I met in New York. I model, and she was a musician. She was traveling with her band, and she was performing shows. And she's Swedish. I'm Norwegian, so of course we connected, and we're both Scandinavian. So we started just hanging out, and we have a lot of things in common.
And she was a happy person, like, got along with anybody, any kind of beefs that you saw, like any feud she had with anybody?
Camilla is a super, super easygoing person. She gets along with everybody. She's really outgoing. She loves animals. She's stunning on the outside, but she's also really beautiful on the inside, which kind of sounds like a cliche, I guess, but it's true in her case. She would, when we hang out, she would never ask about, she would never talk about herself. She would talk about me. She'd be like, how are you doing? And you look great. And you look so amazing. And she was always focused on the person in front of her and not herself.
But was there ever kind of like a relationship that she had with somebody that maybe you think about and you say that was a interesting point in her life, or man, wonder if authorities are looking into that or anything like that?
She was married once, but that was a long time ago. And as far as I know, they have no contact at all. And he's remarried, and they both went, on their separate ways.
Mm. And you talked about her career. You talked about COVID. There was a struggle, I think, for everybody. There was no performances. It was a really tough time. But how was her career doing from what you saw? Obviously, if this is true about the financial situation and rent payments, but from what you saw of her career, how was she doing?
I think she was doing okay. I mean, the thing with Camilla, she's an artist. So she would, you know, she's first and foremost a musician. And I'm sure you've seen her music. But she also wrote screenplays and theater plays. And she was constantly working on something. She wrote poetry. She was, drawing. She always did something. So I think, like I said, the last couple of years for sure have been difficult because of COVID. And prior to that, I think she was doing all right. She was working with producers like Max Martin. At some point, she wrote a song for Katy Perry. And she always collaborated with a lot of other bands, including a Swedish band called Kent that she was touring with for a while. She sang on a lot of records, not even being credited. But she would always help out other musicians. She loved just playing guitar, and she was just very talented.
And I know it's tough to you can be friends with somebody, even have family members, and it's tough to know what's really going on. We were wondering if it's possible, 6, 7 weeks. Do you think she has the resources to live on her own for 6 or 7 weeks? The money, the resources to do that, because that's a consideration I'm sure is going on in the mind of investigators. Did she take off on her own, and is she living somewhere? From as best that you can tell, do you think she has the resources to do that?
I do not. She does not have a passport. Her car has not been seen since June 30th. She has not been seen since June 29th, because when the car disappeared, although it was seen on cameras in Beverly Hills, we actually do not know if she was the driver of the vehicle.
Right.
We also don't know where the cat is. We're hoping that wherever she is, the cat is, but we don't actually know this. So,
and let me just talk to you about that. Let me talk to you about that for a second.
Yeah.
So you're saying this cat, she wouldn't leave without the cat, right?
No. The cat is like her child. The cat's 19
Mhm.
years old. He's sick, and it's her child.
And so again, like you said, she wouldn't pick up, she wouldn't leave, and you were saying that she wouldn't have the resources to just go out on her own and pick up and move somewhere and leave somewhere, and it just wouldn't happen.
No, it wouldn't happen. And I think the issue here is, even if she got into a car and said, I need a couple of days, maybe she would go to Palm Springs or Ojai or somewhere around LA area and disappear for a couple of days. I would say that would be normal for any one of us. I do it all the time. However, at 7 weeks and they can't trace the car and there's no evidence of her anywhere, at this point, I personally believe something has happened.
When you say they can't trace the car, what makes you say that?
The detective at Beverly Hills Police Department informed us that there is a bowler alert out on her car, which is like a bulletin for any law enforcement all over the country, nationwide. And they have not been able to see the car on any cameras anywhere. The license plates has not been read by any camera anywhere since the day she disappeared.
Did they give you an indication about her phone, credit card activity, anything like that? I know it's a sensitive investigation and they might not share everything with you, but the best you can tell, did they tell you anything about how they might be able to track her that way?
I can't speak for the Beverly Hills Police Department because it's an active investigation, but both myself as well as her family and friends have called her phone thousands of times at this point. I personally called her today probably 10 or 20 times this morning. I called her last night probably 10 or 20 times. And throughout the day, we all try calling her and the phone is no longer active.
So you said you're worried. Do you have an idea of what might have happened? Do you have a theory about what might have happened? Because it's very concerning. It's very concerning, and we're all hoping for her safe return. It's scary at this point. what is everyone saying? Those around her, her family. I mean, you yourself. Have you talked about what you think might have happened?
Uh, it's hard to speculate. I mean, I'm hoping, she maybe she's in a hospital somewhere and she just has amnesia and can't remember anything, and somehow her ID is not with her. Best case scenario. I unfortunately think, when somebody drives off or leaves their apartment at night, which if she was in the car, and 7 weeks goes by and not a single person has seen or heard from her, and police can't trace her, I'm starting to wonder if somebody has her or did something to her.
Have the police been pretty open in their communication with you about keeping you updated on what's been going on?
No, and I understand that. I mean, we talk to them. I mean, I'm in touch with them, several times a week. I spoke to the officer yesterday who's handling the case, the detective, and they're all working really, really hard. They're putting all their resources to this, and they're obviously as concerned as we are. However, it's limited for him how much he can share with us because it's an active investigation. So he unfortunately has been pretty tight-lipped.
How's her family doing throughout all this?
I spoke to her sister last night, and her sister was just crying. I mean, she's devastated.
Yeah, it's a heartbreaking and unfortunate situation. If people are listening to this and they want to do more, they want to help, what do you encourage them to do?
Well, I just want you to be on the lookout for her. Like, remember her license plate. The color is silver. She's driving a Ford Fusion. It's an older vehicle. If she is seen, she's probably going to be with her cat. She's 5'10", blonde, blue eyes, beautiful girl. Call Beverly Hills Police Department, ASAP, or 911 if you see her. Share her flyer on social media as much as you can. Keep resharing the stories about her and just keep the investigation going.
I think that's really well said. I'm glad that more media exposure more media is focusing on this story and they're showing it out there. And hopefully people can be on the lookout for Camilla Laert-Segura. And hopefully, as we said, there's a safe return of her back to her family and friends. Cecilia, thank you so much for taking the time. Again, I know this is a difficult moment in your life, but we appreciate you sharing any information you have about her and for taking the time as well.
Thank you for having me.